Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Looking back, the days before everything fell apart seem like a lifetime ago. Olivia and I have been married for 6 years, and in the eyes of the world, our marriage is perfect. We have invested countless hours of time and love to create a cozy home together. When we decided to start our own little family, it was as if the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle was about to fall into place, and the end was in sight. However, our relationship is not without its challenges. The nature of my work often took me away from home for weeks at a time, and an unspoken loneliness lurked between us, like a ghost that could never be dispelled. Nevertheless, I'm convinced that our bond is strong enough to cross any chasm. When Olivia told me she was pregnant, I was ecstatic, as if my whole being was lit up. The prospect of becoming a father gave me a new mission in life, and I devoted myself to preparing for the new baby. We spent countless hours picking out names, painting the nursery, and thinking about our future. I've even taken the initiative to relocate my workplace so that I can spend more time with her and the baby on the way. For this reason, I even gladly accepted a pay cut. For a few months, life seemed to be on a flower-filled path, but I would soon realize that underneath the seeming beauty, everything had already begun to fall apart. The scene was almost perfect, like a nostalgic picture of a cozy family. It's not the kind of image that would make the cover of a magazine, but it's warm and real. My mother-in-law stood on one side of the bed, my mother on the other, and the loving eyes of both elders were on Olivia and our newborn daughter, who was suckling quietly at the breast. Newborns aren't usually particularly beautiful, but in the eyes of their parents and grandparents, they are the most perfect creations on earth. As I gazed at it all, I had to admit that our daughter was indeed stunningly beautiful. Her skin had changed from the reddish color of her birth to a soft pink, like a peach blossom in its first blossom. The fetal fat that had covered her body at birth had been carefully cleaned away. Even her head, initially conical in shape, is now rounded and lovely, as if it were a cherub. A feeling came over me that she would grow up to be as beautiful as her mother Olivia. Olivia, my wife of 6 years, who I thought was the love of my life. I watched quietly as Olivia nursed the baby, while our mother offered not-so-necessary advice. Nonetheless, Olivia seems to have mastered breastfeeding quite naturally, probably thanks to the parenting course we attended earlier, where all sorts of things about breastfeeding and newborn care were explained in detail. Just as I stepped back a little, a nurse and another lady came into the room. "This is Ms. Jenkins from administration," the nurse, whose name escapes me, introduced, "and she's brought in the birth certificate application, which you'll need to fill out." In other settings, a topless woman nursing a baby and doing paperwork might seem out of place. But here, everything is normal. There's no rush. Feed the baby first. Ms. Jenkins said to Olivia, "Fill in the highlighted section when you're ready. Most of the information we need should already be in your hospital records, such as your date and place of birth, but we'll also need both of your full names, your maiden name, your age, and a few other details. We'll take care of the rest. You will receive a copy of your birth certificate in the mail within 2 weeks." With that, Ms. Jenkins turned and left the room. "Honey, could you help fill in those details? I'm a bit tied up at the moment," Olivia said with a soft smile. I didn't respond to her smile. No, I think I'll leave it for you to fill in later when you're not busy." I replied coldly, "Besides, we should probably wait for the results of the DNA test to confirm whether or not I'm really the father." If this were a movie, you'd imagine the shrill sound of a record needle suddenly scraping to a stop. The whole room froze instantly. 3 of the 4 women stared at me, too stunned to speak. The baby, the only one not looking at me, was the only one making a sound, because her feeding was suddenly interrupted. Her cries almost drowned out the sound of the others, pouring out cold air. My mother-in-law Sophia was the first to break the silence. "Are you crazy? How could you say such a thing?" she questioned sternly, glancing at Olivia, whose expression shifted from shock to confusion and finally to anger. "How dare you accuse me of having someone else's child? What kind of woman do you take me for?" Olivia shot back excitedly. She then hesitated, trying to squeeze out a forced smile. Oh, I see. You're kidding, right? It's April Fool's Day, but it's not funny. You should know that this kind of joke is not at all appropriate. However, her body language gives away what is really going on inside. Her shock was so obvious, it couldn't be hidden. I stood there, watching her coldly. I'm serious, I said unabashedly. In all likelihood, I am not the father of this child. How could you possibly think that? Have I ever given you any reason to doubt me? Name one time, even one, when I've made you think I'm having an affair with someone else. She demanded eagerly. I ignored her question and continued. So you resorted to the usual tricks. Deny, deny again, and then keep denying. And you managed to keep a calm and collected look on your face. I must say, your acting is really impressive. I turned to my mother-in-law. Maybe I should move the baby seat from my car to yours, so you can take them home this afternoon. Even though you and Mom have offered to help before, we've always insisted we could handle it. But now it looks like she's really going to need the support, since I won't be around. Just as I was about to turn and leave the room, an unquestioning command from behind me stopped me in my tracks. Jason Lewis Thompson, you stop right there. My mother's voice was full of authority, demanding my immediate attention. I turned slowly to face her, my heart ready for the storm. My mother and mother-in-law exchange worried looks, while Olivia begins to sob uncontrollably. No, you can't do this to me and little Lily. She's our baby. You're her dad. Olivia cries, desperation in her voice. Before responding to my mother, I said to Olivia, I know I'm supposed to be the father, but the question is, am I really the biological father of the child? You know, there's a fundamental difference between the two. My mom poked me hard in the chest with her finger, pulling my attention back. She closes the distance between us, grabs the front of my shirt, pulls me close, and looks right at me with her sharp eyes, the way she did when I was a kid and made a mistake. Jason, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you being so stupid all of a sudden? You can't back down now. You can't run away from your fatherly responsibilities. That's a given. Remember how excited you were when Olivia told us she was pregnant? You've been hungrily reading parenting books, buying and assembling cribs, diaper tables, and everything in the nursery. You even hand-painted the walls pink and yellow and painted cute little animals. Every week you'll bring home a new toy, some of which she won't be able to use until she can walk. Mom paused, scrutinizing me with sharp eyes. So, what made you change your mind all of a sudden? I have some new insights. I grudgingly admitted, I'm not so keen on it all anymore. I think you've all noticed. Hey, Sophia, my mother-in-law interjects. We did all notice that you haven't held Lily yet, or even really looked at her properly. We thought it was just because you hadn't fully adjusted to being a father. What the hell happened? If that child is really mine, I'll do everything I can to take care of her and be a good father. I declared so vehemently that both my mom and Sophia took an involuntary step back. I used to be all in, but last week, everything changed when I found out I might not be the father. I will not and cannot bond with a child who may not be my own. What? Three voices exclaimed almost simultaneously. If she were my child, I'd provide for her. But if not, William Adams should be held accountable for his actions. I said unflinchingly. The moment I mentioned the name William Adams, Olivia suddenly loses her voice. Nothing ever happened between William and me. We never crossed the line in any way. How can you accuse me of that? As I moved to the end of her hospital bed, Mom and Sophia exchanged meaningful glances, their eyes darting back and forth between Olivia and me as if they were trying to solve a complex mystery. Really? You're going to continue to deny the fact that you had an affair that lasted almost 6 months and only ended when you found out you were pregnant and told him 7 months ago? There was sarcasm in my voice. From what I understand, he also told you to make sure I never found out about it. Olivia's face instantly turned red. No, we absolutely did not. Anyone who says such a thing is maligning. Who the hell is William Adams? Who told you about this alleged affair? Sophia asked sternly, her voice rising an octave with anger. I want to know who is spreading lies about my daughter. I selectively ignored the first question and only answered the second. William Adams told me himself, I said calmly, as if stating a common fact. Before Sophia could respond in any way, perhaps because of her post-birth exhaustion and emotional meltdown, Olivia blurted out, "There's no way William could have told you that. He promised me he'd keep it a secret." Sophia's eyes dart back and forth between her daughter and me, suddenly realizing what Olivia has unwittingly let slip. "I need to know the exact truth. What the hell do you know?" There was determination and suppressed anger in her voice. I pause, take a deep breath, and then say to Olivia, "William told me everything. He went all in. But, to be fair, he was under a great deal of pressure at the time, and uttered these things in groans of agony." "Nonsense," Olivia retorted, but her voice had begun to tremble. "William was fine when he called me yesterday. He called to check on me and the baby." She may not have realized how fatally flawed her words were because of her post-birth exhaustion, but her words hit everyone in the room like a hammer. Sophia's shoulders slumped slightly, as if she were suddenly under a great weight. I glanced at my mother, her eyes wide open, trying to digest the sudden information. "So you're still in touch with your old flame?" I said coldly. "Is he still giving you ideas on how to continue to keep me in the dark about the possibility that he might be the father?" No longer able to maintain her composure, Olivia broke down and cried so loudly that two nurses rushed into the room. "She's a bit of an emotional wreck," I explained to the first nurse, but my tone might have sounded a little strange, because the nurse cast me a wary, protective look. "We're just discussing possible fathers, in order to fill out the birth certificate application," I added, trying to ease the tension. The nurse still eyed me with suspicion. "Well, it looks like she wants me to fill in my name, but I think we should wait until we're sure I'm the father, not the guy she was seeing when she got pregnant." It was clear from the change in the nurse's expression that she was beginning to understand the complexity of the situation. She turned to reassure Olivia, her tone gentle and professional. "Miss Thompson, let's do some deep breathing, shall we? Remember the breathing techniques you learned in labor. Cheryl will have something to help you relax, if needed, but let's try the natural way first. We don't want any drugs passed on to the baby through breast milk, right? Come on, take a deep breath with me." As I watched the nurse soothe Olivia, I didn't notice my mother and mother-in-law creeping closer. "You need to explain exactly what happened," my mom said, lowering her voice with a hint of sternness I'd never heard before. I couldn't help but be shocked. Mom rarely spoke in that tone of voice, but she'd done it twice today. Obviously, the seriousness of the matter was far beyond my imagination. Based on Olivia's reaction, my mother-in-law Sophia added, her voice slightly raspy with suppressed emotion, "I want to know the whole truth. When did it happen? How did it happen? Why did it happen?" Everything was completely unexpected. Well, things should be obvious. I tried to stay calm, but the pain and anger inside me was like a tidal wave. She was having an affair with a coworker, and when she found out she was pregnant, at least one person, besides me, could have been the father of the baby. I can't be sure if there are others. I saw the same puzzled look flash across my mom's and Sophia's faces. They were obviously desperate for more details. "Yes, you heard right. She was having an affair with a coworker named William, and it happened while she was pregnant," I continued, feeling every word stabbing my heart like a knife. "We were actively trying to have kids, y'all." "Jason," my mom whispered, her voice full of incredulity, "how did you find out? Why now?" I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. "We're not very careful." I mimicked Olivia's earlier tone. "She and William obviously think they're doing a seamless job, but they're not." But, Sophia stammered, obviously still trying to come to terms with the harsh reality. "How could Olivia? I mean, you guys seem so happy, so excited about this baby. Appearances can be deceiving, can't they?" I said bitterly. "I thought we were happy too. Until last week, I hadn't realized I might have been living an elaborate lie." "What about William?" my mom asked, her voice almost below a whisper. "Does he know the baby could be his?" I nodded. "Oh, he knows. In fact, the two of them have been plotting how to handle the situation. They hoped I'd never find out the truth, and just foolishly raise children who might not be my own. A heavy silence falls over the room, broken only by Olivia's intermittent sobs. Suddenly, Sophia turned to her daughter, her voice trembling with anger and disappointment. "Olivia, is it true? Did you really cheat on Jason, on your marriage?" Olivia looks up at us, teary-eyed. I don't know how to explain. We never thought things would turn out this way. So what do you guys think? I asked coldly. Did you think you could keep this from me forever? That I would accept and raise a child that may not be my own without question? "We're careful," Olivia whispered, but then realized how harsh it sounded. "Apparently not careful enough," I said mockingly. "Otherwise we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation, would we?" My mom sighed deeply and asked, "Jason, what are you going to do? Are you still going to?" Her voice trailed off, as if she couldn't bear to voice that possibility. I understand her unfinished business. Will I stay? Will I forgive Olivia? Will I accept this child? I don't know. I answered honestly, I really don't know. But I know one thing. I won't sign the birth certificate until we establish the child's paternity. And I'm not sure I can continue this marriage. But what about the child? Sophia asked eagerly. In any case, she's innocent. I looked at the baby lying in Olivia's arms, and I had mixed feelings. She's innocent, yes, but she's also living proof of this betrayal. If the DNA test proves I'm the father, I'll do my part. I finally said, but if it's not, that's another thing. Just then, Ms. Jenkins reappeared in the doorway. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But the birth certificate—" "Wait," I interrupted her. "Don't fill anything out until we get the results of the DNA test." Ms. Jenkins looks at everyone in the room in confusion, then nods. "Okay, I get it. I'll come back later." When she left, a heavy silence once again fell over the room. Each of us is lost in our own thoughts, trying to make sense of this sudden, heartbreaking reality. I look at Olivia, who I once thought was the most important person in my life. Now, she seems so strange, so far away. The love, trust, and commitment we had between us seemed to vanish in an instant. "I need some time," I finally said, my voice filled with exhaustion and pain. "I'll move out for a while. Sophia, can you take care of Olivia and the baby?" Sophia nodded, though shock and disappointment still filled her eyes. I turned to leave, but stopped at the door. I looked back at the room that used to be my family's. Olivia is holding the baby, in tears. My mother and mother-in-law stood there, confusion and sadness written all over their faces. And I, standing on the threshold, felt as if I were standing at the crossroads of two worlds. "I'll be in touch about the DNA test." When I finished, I turned around and walked out of the room. The icy air of the hospital corridors hit me as if to remind me that my life had changed forever. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that from this moment on, nothing will ever be the same again. When I left the hospital, I felt dizzy. The sunlight was unbearable, as if it were mocking my inner darkness. I'm standing in the parking lot, suddenly realizing I don't even know where I'm supposed to go. Home? The place where Olivia and I shared so many memories? The nursery we decorated, waiting for a baby that might not be mine? The thought made my stomach turn. I drove mechanically, eventually stopping at my best friend Alex's apartment building. We've known each other for over 20 years, and he's the only person I've ever felt I could talk to. When Alex opens the door and sees me, his smile freezes. "Man, you look like shit. What happened?" he asked, concern in his eyes. I walked into his apartment, sat down heavily on the couch, and felt all the strength drain out of me. "Olivia, she betrayed me." I finally said the words, my voice so hoarse I hardly recognized it. Alex froze, then reacted quickly. He didn't say anything, just went to the fridge and pulled out 2 beers. He handed me a bottle, opened one himself, and sat down next to me. "Tell me everything," he said calmly. So, I poured it all out. Olivia's affair, pregnancy doubts, confrontation in the hospital. In saying these things, I felt like I was telling someone else's story, not my own life. Alex listens quietly, nodding occasionally, but not interrupting me. When I finished, the room fell silent. I'm sorry, bro, he said at last, with sympathy in his voice. What are you going to do now? I laughed bitterly. Honestly, I don't know. I felt like my whole world was falling apart. I thought we were going to be the perfect family of three, and now I don't even know if that baby is mine. Alex nods, sipping his beer thoughtfully. You want a paternity test? Of course, I replied immediately. I need to know the truth. But even if that baby was mine, I don't know if I could ever forgive Olivia. You don't have to decide now, Alex says. Give yourself some time. It's a huge blow, and you need time to digest it. I looked at Alex gratefully. His calmness and understanding gave me an ounce of comfort. Can I stay here for a couple days? I asked. I really don't want to go home right now. Sure, Alex said without hesitation. You can stay as long as you want. I spent the next few days like a zombie. I called in sick and spent most of my time lying in Alex's guest room, staring at the ceiling. Olivia kept texting and calling me, but I didn't respond. I knew I'd have to face her eventually, face the situation, but I wasn't ready. My mom calls every day to check up on me. Her voice was full of worry and a hint of reproach. Jason, you can't run away forever. She said on the third day, you need to make decisions about your life. I know she's right, but every time I think about facing reality, I feel a pang of panic. On the fifth day, I finally got up the courage to contact a DNA paternity testing organization. When I hung up, I felt a wave of exhaustion I'd never felt before. That night, Alex and I sat on his balcony, watching the city lights. You know, I snapped, I always thought I had my life planned out. Marriage, children, work, retirement. Simple and happy. Now it all seems so ridiculous. Alex was silent for a moment, then said, Life rarely goes the way we plan. But that doesn't mean you can't have happiness. Maybe this is a chance to start over. I laughed bitterly and shook my head. Starting over? I don't even know where to start. Starting tomorrow, Alex said firmly. Tomorrow, you're going to go home, pack your things. Then, we'll get a lawyer. Regardless of the results of the DNA test, you need to protect your rights. I look at Alex, and I feel something loosen in my chest. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's better to face reality and take action than to keep hiding. Well, I finally said, tomorrow. We'll do all that tomorrow. That night, I lay in bed, and for the first time, I allowed myself to really feel the emotions I had been suppressing for days. Anger, sadness, betrayal, fear, they come in waves. I cried silently, for the love I'd lost, for the dream of the perfect family that might never become a reality. But through the tears, I also felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, as Alex said, it's a chance to start over. Maybe, in these ruins, I can rebuild my life. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the curtains, I made my decision. No matter what the DNA test says, no matter what the future holds, I'm gonna live for myself. I won't let Olivia's betrayal define my life. I got up, took a shower, shaved. When I look at myself in the mirror, I see someone who is bruised but not beaten. I took a deep breath and prepared for a new day. It's time to face reality. It's time to start over. The next morning, Alex drove me home. As we pulled up to the house I used to call home, I felt a pang of unreality. A place that once held all of Olivia's and my dreams, and now a place full of painful memories. Do I need to come in with you? Alex asked, concern in his eyes. I took a deep breath and shook my head. No, I have to face this on my own. But, can you wait for me in the car? Alex nodded. Sure, bro. I'm not going anywhere. I walked toward the front door, the key in my hand suddenly feeling so foreign. When I opened the door, the silence inside made me uneasy. I was expecting Olivia to show up, but the house was empty. It occurred to me that Olivia might still be in the hospital or at her mother's house. I went straight to my bedroom and began mechanically packing my clothes and personal belongings. When I opened the closet, Olivia's dress caught my eye, and I felt a tingle. Our life together just hung there neatly, and now, everything's changed. I packed as quickly as I could, not wanting to stay in this place of memories. But as I passed the nursery, I couldn't help but stop in my tracks. I pushed open the half-hidden door and looked at our carefully decorated little world. The walls were painted with cute little animals, and in the corner stood the crib I had assembled. This was supposed to be a new beginning for our family, not an end. I stood there, feeling tears start to well up in my eyes. But I forced myself to turn away. This is no time for weakness. As I dragged my suitcase out of the house, I saw my neighbor Mrs. Chun pruning her roses. When she saw me, she had a surprised look on her face. "Jason? I thought you and Olivia were still at the hospital," she asked with concern. I forced a smile. "Oh, I just came to get some stuff. Olivia and the baby are fine," I lied, not wanting to expose our problems to the neighbors. Mrs. Chen nodded, but the look in her eyes told me she didn't believe me. I said a quick goodbye to her and got into Alex's car. "Done?" Alex asked. I nodded. "Yes, let's go." Our next stop was a law firm. Alex's cousin is a divorce attorney, and he set up an emergency appointment for us. When we walked into Mr. Kevin Zhang's office, I felt a sense of unreality. I never thought I would need the services of a divorce attorney. Kevin is a man who looks younger than he is, but his eyes reveal experience and wisdom. He listened carefully to my account of the whole situation, nodding his head from time to time or making notes in his notebook. "Jason," he concluded, "I'm sorry you're in this situation, but you were right to come to me. We need to protect your rights, especially given the complication that the child may not be yours." For the next hour, Kevin explained my legal options in detail. He advised me to freeze the joint account immediately in case Olivia tried to transfer the funds. He also suggested that I start gathering evidence, including any written records of Olivia's admission of the affair. Regarding the baby, Kevin said, "We need to wait for the results of the DNA test. If the child is yours, then we need to discuss custody. If it wasn't, then it's much easier." I nodded, feeling like I was listening to someone else's story. How could this happen to me? After leaving the law office, Alex suggested we get something to eat. We found a quiet little restaurant and ordered some simple food. When the waiter brought it up, I suddenly realized I hadn't had a good meal in days. "You know," I said as I poked at my plate, "I always thought my life would be different. Marry, have children, and grow old together. Now it all seems like a ridiculous fairy tale." Alex was silent for a moment, then said, "Life rarely goes the way we plan. But that doesn't mean you can't find happiness again. Maybe this is a chance to start over." I laughed bitterly and shook my head. "Starting over? I don't even know where to start." "From now on," Alex said firmly, "you've taken the first step. You moved out of that house. You consulted a lawyer. Next, you need to focus on yourself. Maybe it's time to revisit your career or try some new hobbies." I look up at Alex, and maybe he's right. Maybe it's better to face reality and take action than to keep wallowing in misery. "You're right," I finally said. "I can't let this define my whole life. I need to find myself." That night, as I lay in bed in Alex's guest room, I felt a strange calm. The future is still full of uncertainty, but at least I've started taking action. I know that the road ahead is long and difficult, but I am determined to take it one step at a time. I took out my cell phone, hesitated, then sent Olivia a short message. "We need to talk. Tomorrow afternoon, meet me at the cafe." After the message, I turned off my cell phone. Tomorrow will be a tough day, but I know that this is a necessary step. I closed my eyes, hoping to get some real rest. Tomorrow, I'll face Olivia, face our reality. Tomorrow, I'll start rebuilding my life. The next afternoon, I sat in the same cafe we always went to, waiting for Olivia to arrive. This is where we used to go on our dates, and it's full of sweet memories. Now, it's a witness to the possible end of our marriage. My fingers tapped on the desktop, my heart beating so fast that it almost jumped out of my chest. When Olivia pushed her way in, I hardly recognized her. She looked haggard, with obvious dark circles under her eyes. She approached me hesitantly, as if she wasn't sure she was welcome. "Jason," she whispered, uncertainty in her voice. "Thank you for wanting to see me." I nodded and motioned for her to sit down. We fell into an awkward silence, neither of us knowing how to begin this difficult conversation. Finally, I took a deep breath and broke the silence. "Olivia, we need to talk about the future. About our marriage, about the baby." Olivia's eyes flashed with pain. "Jason, I know I've made a terrible mistake. I regret it every day. But, but can't we just end it? We used to love each other so much. I felt a surge of anger in my heart. Love? Olivia, if you really love me, how could you betray me? How could you make me wonder if I'm the father of that child? She lowered her head, and tears began to well up in her eyes. I know I hurt you, deeply, but Jason, that baby could very well be yours. We've been trying to have kids, remember? I sneered. Yes, I remember. I also remember you were with William at the same time. Olivia, have you ever wondered what our lives would be like if that baby wasn't mine? Olivia looks up, her eyes pleading. But what if she's yours? Jason, you would love her. I know you would. We can start over for her. I shook my head, feeling a wave of exhaustion. Olivia, even if that baby was mine, there's no way we could go back to the way things were. You betrayed my trust. You betrayed our marriage. It's not something I can easily forgive or forget. We continued to talk for almost 2 hours, discussing our feelings, our mistakes, and possible futures. In the end, we came to a tentative agreement to wait for the results of the DNA test before making a final decision. When I left the cafe, I felt both exhausted and strangely relieved. The problem is far from solved, but at least we're starting to face it. Over the next few days, I began to re-examine my life. I went back to work, trying to find some solace in my busy schedule. I've also started to try some new hobbies, such as learning to cook and photography. These activities helped me escape reality for a while, giving me some breathing room. However, the shadow of the DNA test results always loomed over me. Every morning, I wake up and think, are we going to get results today? Finally, after a seemingly endless 2 weeks of waiting, the test results are in. I got a call from the hospital telling me I could pick up my results. I asked Alex to go with me, not sure I could face this potentially life-changing moment alone. As we sat in the doctor's office, I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. The doctor walks in with an envelope, a professionally neutral expression on his face. Mr. Thompson, he said, we have the results of the DNA test. Are you ready? I nodded, my throat too dry to speak. The doctor opened the envelope, scanned the results, and then looked up at me. According to our tests, you are not the biological father of that child. The words hit me like a hammer in the chest. Although I had prepared myself for the worst, when I heard the result, I felt the heavens spinning. Alex immediately took hold of my shoulder, giving me support. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm down. Thank you, doctor, I said at last, my voice hoarse. Can I get a written report? The doctor nodded, handing me a document. This is the official report. If you need any counseling services, we have a team of professionals at the hospital who can help. I took the paper mechanically, feeling like I was in a dream. Alex and I left the hospital, standing in the parking lot, not knowing what to do. You okay, bro? Alex asked with concern. I shook my head, feeling tears start to well up in my eyes. I don't know, Alex. I thought I was ready, but this feels worse than I thought it would. Alex gave me a hug. I know this is hard to take, but remember, you're not alone. We're all here to support you. I nodded, looking at my friend gratefully. Then, I took out my cell phone, took a deep breath, and sent Olivia a short message. The results are in. Let's talk. When I hit send, I knew my life would change forever. It's not the outcome I wanted, but it's a reality I have to face. Now, I need to decide how to move forward, how to rebuild my life. I looked at Alex and said, I think I need a drink. Alex nodded, understandingly. Come on, it's on me. Tonight, we'll have a drink. Tomorrow, we'll figure it all out. As we drove away from the hospital, I felt a strange sense of relief. As heartbreaking as the outcome was, at least now I know the truth. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that, one way or another, I'll pull myself together. I'll find happiness again, even if it means I have to redefine what happiness is. A few days later, Jason begins to deal with the end of his relationship with Olivia. Although their marriage was in name only, the legal process of divorce took time to complete. He found an attorney and began discussing the details of dividing the property and formalizing the breakup. Each step was like reopening the wound once more, but Jason knew that only through this process could he truly begin to heal. Over the next few weeks, Jason moved into a small apartment and tried to keep himself as busy as possible. He got back into fitness, joined a local basketball league, and tried to distract himself from his family's collapse through physical activity. He also begins to reevaluate his career path, considering whether he should accept the job promotion he has been turning down in order to get away from the city where he has lived with Olivia. Even though these changes seemed at first to help his recovery, Jason still felt an emptiness deep inside. Whenever it was late at night, he would always think of Lily's smile, her big, innocent eyes, and how much he used to look forward to growing up with her. Even knowing that she wasn't his biological daughter, this fatherly affection remained deeply rooted. When the divorce dust settled a few months later, Jason felt ready for a fresh start. While the road is still full of challenges, he has been able to face the future with more determination and is no longer bound by the shadows of the past. Jason pushed open the door to the cafe, his eyes icy. Olivia was already there waiting for him, hope and fear in her eyes. When Jason sat down, the air seemed to freeze. "The results are in." Jason's voice didn't have a trace of warmth in it. Olivia shuddered and asked, What was the result?" "I'm not the father of the baby." Jason looked her straight in the eye. "And you know what that means." Olivia's world fell apart in that moment. She tried to explain, but Jason held up his hand to stop her. "No need to explain, Olivia. We're done. I've contacted my attorney and the divorce papers will be delivered soon." "Jason, please." Olivia choked. "Don't." Jason interrupted her. "You betrayed me and lied to me. We have nothing more to say." The next few weeks were a nightmare for Olivia. The divorce proceeds quickly, with Jason acting cold and determined. When the final papers are signed, Olivia feels like her life has been completely ripped apart. To add to her despair, she finds herself gradually abandoned by everyone. Her parents, who had once loved her so much, now looked at her with disappointment and shame. "We didn't raise you that way," her father said, "and you've disgraced the whole family." Her friends also began to alienate her. Some blamed her publicly, while others silently disappeared from her life. Even William, the child's real father, grows cold. "I can't take the responsibility," he said when last seen. "I'm sorry, but I don't want the baby." Olivia stood alone in her room, her newborn daughter in her arms, tears blurring her vision. She knew that from now on, she would be on her own. Month after month, year after year, Olivia works hard and raises her daughter alone. Every night, as she lay exhausted in bed, she thought about the mistakes she had made and the consequences of them. However, through all the difficulties and loneliness, Olivia slowly finds her strength. She learned to be independent and strong. More importantly, she learned to genuinely love her daughter, even though the child had been proof of her life's mistakes. One day, 5 years later, Olivia took her daughter for a walk in the park. She looked at her daughter's innocent smile and suddenly realized that, despite a difficult life, she did not regret having this child. "Mommy, do you love me?" my daughter asked suddenly. Olivia knelt down and looked her daughter straight in the eyes. "Yes, honey. Mommy will always love you. You are the most precious gift in Mommy's life." In that moment, Olivia realized that although she had lost so much, she had also gained irreplaceable love. Her path to redemption may be lonely, but it is not without hope and warmth. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.